What's the worst case of rich kid syndrome you've seen? One of my college classmates wrecked his Range Rover over winter break and came back in an Aston Martin. In college I wrecked my 1998 Toyota, and came back in a 1998 Toyota with the front bumper missing. In middle school we were asked to draw our homes for some assignment and hand it in at the end of class. A popular, extremely wealthy kid that sat behind me raised his hand and smugly asked the teacher for another sheet of paper because he couldn't draw it all on one page. His friends just snickered, but I was cringing. Even at 12 I remember thinking it was such a snobby thing to say. Worked with this kid who was a good kid, but completely disconnected from financial reality for most people. He'd just moved out west from another state and was trying to get on like a normal adult. He went to buy a new car and was shocked that they couldn't just bill his dad for it, since they didn't know him. He ordered a bottle of wine at a restaurant and the sommelier said, "Certainly, sir." Then the sommelier whispered, "Just for your knowledge, sir, the bottle is $700. He looked straight at him and asked, "Is that a lot?" The sommelier honestly didn't know how to answer. Good kid, and he got a lot better, but he just didn't know. Once he casually told his mom he needed some help with bills and she deposited $20,000 into his account. I work for a dentist and her son is a spoiled brat. He was at the office one day because she had to bring him to an appointment later that day. He got bored and went out wandering around some of the local shops. He came back a little while later and without any preamble walked up to her and said, "Give me $80." She asked him what it was for and he just repeated himself and she gave it to him. Went to school with a crazy rich kid. His parents divorced and each decided to buy his love. Mommy owned a real estate agency, so she got him a license and spoon-fed him enough sales for a six-figure income. The dad then bought him a magazine. Yes, the dad bought a magazine for his 24-year-old cokehead son to run. Worked about as well as you'd imagine. My fiance's cousin. He managed to crash 4 cars while still in high school because his father would replace them. When he moved on to college, he got kicked out of several apartments for owning a dog when they weren't permitted. He told me he didn't care though, since his father also funded his continuous stream of new housing. From what I last heard, his father is now paying for his long-standing cocaine habit. A guy looked at my $2,000 beater car in college and commented that it must have been really cheap and guessed $15,000. For anyone curious, it was a Kia Rio 2005 with 120k miles on it. My fraternity brother's monthly allowance of $2,000 was cancelled from his parents because he made a few F's. He then called his aunt for a separate allowance. Knew this one guy at my college who didn't understand why everybody is so worked up about student loans. I remember him saying something along the lines of, "Why don't people just pay the tuition up front?" He was also quite sheltered. I knew a girl whose allowance was $90 a day. She got into trouble so they cut it to $90 a week. My friend literally throws away his change because he hates holding coins. Doesn't matter if it's 99 cents, he'll throw it away. That shit adds up. Went to HS with this insufferably spoiled kid. Family had a couch in their home's elevator. And classical European sculpture, this was in the US. Kid talked down to Slash about the less fortunate on a regular basis. Once made fun of me for picking a coin up off the ground. In high school a kid was bragging that he got in his third fender bender in his old car, 3 years old, that his parents gave him but he hated, so his parents were buying him an entirely new, current year, car to incentivize him to drive better. This kid back in high school was whining, I mean literally whimpering, that he had to wait something like 6 weeks for his custom-built BMW to come over from Germany. The Nintendo DS just came out. It was like $150 and my family lived in a cramped one-bedroom apartment and drove a 20-year-old car that was always breaking down. We ate those cheap bags of Walmart beans and rice for months at one point. I expressed the desire to own one after my friend said he had one and I got, "Why can't your parents just buy you one? I don't get it, it's dirt cheap." He didn't want to be my friend after that anymore, literally avoided me and made fun of me for the rest of the year behind my back. I'm still salty about it. Maybe not rich kid syndrome, but middle class kid syndrome. My mom's friend used to buy new clothes each season and throw out the old ones. She had to be taught by her husband to save them for the next year. Edit, this happened way back in the 50s. Her family was very rich, and he was just a normal guy. I worked at a Starbucks and we hired a new guy, who I was training. At one point, I had to show him how to clean the restrooms. I grab the bleach, and hand him a pair of gloves, and he looks at me in disgust and says, "We don't have a maid to clean the bathrooms." He quit the next day, lol. So my best friend's wife teaches at a ritzy $40K per year private school. As in, $40,000 a year for elementary and middle school. I think the HS is like $50K plus. Well, she teaches 7th or 8th grade, I can't remember, and she said she always goes around the class after the summer break and asks them what they did over the summer, and she particularly remembers one kid complaining about how much his summer sucked because he was stuck on his parents' yacht all summer and they didn't even take it to anywhere cool, just Italy. My brother works at a rehab center for the kids of wealthy parents. He's always got stories, but the one that sticks with me the most was a kid who was in trouble with the law and doing rehab before his court appearances. You know, to look like a better person and hopefully the judge would go easier on him. He was mopey one day and my brother asks him what's wrong. The kid starts talking about how tough the whole experience has been for him, how it's been so hard on his family that his parents had to sell his house to pay for his rehab. My brother felt sympathetic and says, "Damn, that sucks that your parents had to sell their house over this," to which the kid corrected him, "No, they kept their house. They had to sell mine." Young celebrity posts a pic of a house they just bought. "That house isn't that nice, my cousin's house is way nicer." Babysat some rich kids. A couple gems were when we were watching a movie and she said someone was ugly because they were poor. Another was that they left their stove at the side of the road for hobos. Kid was about 11. Went to a destination wedding in Mexico resort. Rich kids rented a golf cart, tore through the streets and flipped the cart, injuring people and causing a huge commotion and traffic jam. A Mexican lady comes out and begins to scold them for their behavior. "You wouldn't act this way at home." Rich kid responds, "I promise you we do." It was the earnestness of his reply that got me. Apparently there was this 15-year-old girl who was going on an exotic vacation to some Pacific island or something. But her favorite show was on TV the day of their flight, and she really wanted to see it. Her parents delayed the flight so that she could watch an episode of her favorite show. Friend got a theater with an arcade built over their family's 12-car garage. Parents didn't want the 5-year-old sister to be jealous, so they hired an architect to design and build her a fully functioning playhouse with a bathroom, AC, and bedroom. Just the tip of the iceberg with this family though. This girl would always brag about how she's been to every continent except Antarctica and that she's visited so many countries. Then she wondered why people called her the rich kid and insisted she wasn't rich. One girl from my high school got breast implants for her 18th birthday. Her mom joined her as a mother/daughter bonding activity, followed by the daughter getting a brand new $90,000 Mercedes as a high school graduation gift. Guy buys $500 headphones from a vending machine cause he lost his old pair. Like who buys from a fucking tech vending machine impulsively? Luckily the only rich kids I knew were the most outstandingly well-behaved boys I've ever met. I was a youth leader in a ministry for middle schoolers, and I think the worst it ever got was them being mildly disruptive at times. But these kids had a literal half-sized basketball court in their basement, along with a basement the size of a comfortable 2-bedroom apartment, an arcade, a fully stocked second fridge. Don't even get me started on the house itself and the yard. This place easily would list at least as $1 million home. But they would share with all the kids in the group and never ever look down on anyone for not having money like them. These boys even helped me change a flat tire on my car because they felt it was useful to know how. They literally could probably afford a tow truck and a tire repair all in the same day if it ever happened to them. They were so well grounded that it made me feel like I was the spoiled brat at times. Rich kid I know brought $1,000 to the book fair in elementary school. Yeah, $1,000, that's not a typo. Why don't you just get a pass to Disney and Universal? The people at my school TBH cannot fathom having multiple spiders in their house in a week. One of my friend's friends ended up paying for a night out food and entertainment. He'd go up before we got the bill and just pay. No matter how much we argued with him and tried to pay him back, wouldn't take it. Nice dude, met baller rich. Adrian Broner, a boxer, though he was not born rich but became rich in his 20s, if you are not going by what Felix Dennis considers rich. He was supposed to be the next boxing superstar but was beaten badly and exposed. He put out a video of him in line at Walmart. He paid with a $100 bill and threw the change on the ground, saying he is a and only deals in 100s. This is a man who had 7 children by 8 women at 23, 6 years ago, and who knows how many now. He had to settle a $1 million jewelry debt earlier this year. A friend of mine inherited a lot of money, enough to buy a house, and he spent it on 2 cars. A Subaru completely modded to Ken Block's version of it and some BMW, both extremely expensive. We asked him a few months later why he didn't buy a house with it because he still lived with his parents. So he told us that he already owned a penthouse, he just didn't want to move yet. This rich bitch in high school got a BMW for her 17th birthday. About a week later she totaled it, and me and a few of my friends wondered what happened, considering they're considered pretty safe and reliable. Apparently she wanted a brand new 2000 BMW 3 Series and she got a 1997. A 12-year-old family friend got an iPhone XS for his birthday, then deliberately shattered his iPhone 8. In high school a kid made fun of my mother, so I squared up ready to fight him, and he said, "If you lay a finger on me I'll get my father's lawyer to sue your family for everything they've got." Which made me laugh, call him a coward, and I went on with my life. My friend's parents had a dilemma because they both bought each other new Mercedes for Valentine's Day. Went on a cruise with a rich friend. Dinner was served as a 3-course menu, and you could order as many different courses as you want. Rich friend would order 2 plates of food per course, eat a single bite or 2, and throw away the rest of the food. My family was extremely poor when I was younger, and even though we are much better financially now, we still refused to throw away even the smallest leftovers. All those plates of food wasted hurt my heart to see. When I was in boarding school, one of my co-boarders handed me some mail saying, "Do you notice anything special about this envelope?" When I checked it out I realized his face was on the stamp. He was royalty. When I was a kid I got bullied a lot by this one kid named Miguel growing up. His family was a lot better off and spoiled him, buying him the latest shoes, starter jackets, video games, etc. He was always showing it off and especially liked to rub it into my face. My parents both worked 2 jobs to try and provide a decent life for me growing up, but money was tight. Most of my clothes I either got from the thrift store or they were hand-me-downs from my older cousins. I remember one day my parents decided to treat me and take me to the Nike outlet and get a pair of brand new sneakers. This was the first pair of shoes I had in a long time that were all mine and never worn by anyone else. I remember being so excited to wear them to school and walked into the classroom with a big smile that day. Miguel takes one look at my shoes and says, "Nice new, old shoes. I had a pair of those last year when they were cool." With a few words he completely crushed the happiness high I was riding and brought me down instantly. One girl at my school complained that she couldn't go to her mansion in Hawaii for spring break, so she had to go through the torture of stay at one of her other 5. I come from a low-middle income family. I was friends with someone who received a red envelope, Chinese tradition, with easily over $1,000 inside, and he still complained about not being able to afford X and Y. I'd be lucky to even have a proper meal every day consistently. Didn't know that food stamps were a thing. Like, they didn't know the existence of such a system. Edit, it's a US thing. This case isn't too bad, and it's a bit funny. I became friends with a kid whose family was really well off. He was a really nice bloke, but a bit sheltered, and university was the first time he really had any independence, but he had very little sense of what the value of a dollar really was, since his folks got him what he usually wanted, compared to what normal people would spend. There was one particular time he wanted us to eat at a restaurant, and he assured us, "It's really good," so we all rocked up to this place, and the price for main courses started at $40 to $60, which as poor uni students we couldn't afford. But when he realized this he was so embarrassed he got his folks to pay for it. He's finally wised up a few years later once he got more independence away from his family and made his own money, and remains one of the best blokes I know. I work at a country club, and on the 4th of July, while I was working, a little girl asked why we were closing at 7 instead of staying open all night. I told her I wanted to get to do sparklers and fireworks with my family too. She thought about it, looked back at me and said, But y'all aren't real people." I just had to laugh and inform her I was indeed real and all my co-workers weren't just the slaves of the country club. Wild man. A friend of mine who has never worked a day in his life, who was given everything through his parents, including 3 cars he crashed. After he graduated college, he got a job handed to him through his dad. Makes 6 figures. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy he has a good life, but he never struggled a day in his life. He's never sat through a job interview or ever even made a resume. Take this thread down or I'll call my father and he will buy the company and then ban you for life.